What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Gooner, a channel dedicated to all things Arsenal Football Club, who, as we all know, are by far the greatest team the world has ever seen. In this video, I'm going to be taking a look at last night's top-of-the-table clash against champions Manchester City, analysing what went wrong, what positives, if any, we can take out of it, and what it means for our season going forward, as well as analysing Arteta's choices in the run-up to the game. Before I do that, though, you might want to consider taking this moment to hit like and subscribe if you want to be kept regularly updated with the news and views from our beloved club. I post every single day, and your support means the world to me. So, look, nobody's really going to be very positive about the result. Perhaps we are in danger of just focusing on the result too much and not the performance. But I'm going to start off by taking a look at the news that we got several hours before kickoff of Thomas Partey's injury, or at least his niggle, which precautionarily we decided not to risk. And I'm not going to argue with that. I think if it's a hamstring and you overwork it, we could be in danger of losing a player of his importance to us over a very long period of time. But this is not the first time that Thomas Partey has not been available for the big games. And I wonder, and perhaps I'm alone in wondering this, but I wonder if the pressure of being our talisman is weighing quite heavily on him. The pressure may be getting to him. Certainly, he's been injured far more for us than he ever was at Atletico. I think the stats speak for themselves. We are so much more effective with him in the team than we are without. And I think that with Jesus and Partey out, we are arguably missing our two most influential players. And that is going to have played a part when you're up against the world-class team that is Manchester City. What I think it shows us, though, is that we do, and I think it was an important signing of Jorginho, and I think he played very well last night, but he does not offer you everything that Thomas Partey does. He can certainly break up play, and his distribution is not bad, but he's not the link between the attack and defence that Thomas Partey represents. So, can we really, and I said this when we signed Jorginho, can we really expect Thomas Partey to go an entire season uninjured? Certainly not so far, and I wouldn't be confident next year either. I know that there's been a lot of talk about signing Declan Rice. Yuri Tielemans has been often discussed. I would like to see us sign both of those as able deputies, not just in the way that Jorginho can, but who can actually challenge Thomas Partey for a position and take some of the pressure off him. Because I think that in Thomas Partey we have a very good player, but I wonder if we have the kind of player who is ready to take the responsibility for the whole team. Now, I know he's not captain, and I know that's not his job, but that is kind of what he's doing for us at the moment. The general question I have is, from last night's performance, is are we asking too much of our players? Are they playing too many minutes? Granit Xhaka at the end of last night's game was the most tired I've ever seen him. And I know that he's had a long season. He plays season after season. Arsene Wenger, Unai Emery and Arteta have all recognised in him a physical specimen that can run 100% every single game. But I think, just like anybody else, there's going to be a breaking point, and we are in danger of overplaying him, certainly. Martinelli, whose form has almost certainly dipped, unquestionably dipped in the last few games. And, although he was replaced for Trossard, might have been a little bit late. But again, it's not just about these individual players. I think that we have far too small a squad for a realistic title challenge. And that's not me saying I don't think we're going to win the title. That's just me pointing out the obvious, really. Eddie and Nketiah up front last night. I have to say, when they were coming out of the tunnel, I felt that his expression was one of rabbit caught in headlights. He has been a fantastic servant to Arsenal Football Club. He's certainly a great talent up front. Last night he missed his chances, and you just can't afford to do that. I think part of the pressure is, again, he's had to play every minute and he doesn't get subbed at all. So there is going to be a point where you don't get the best out of players. We really need someone on the bench who can come on and replace him, which is why I felt that maybe, and I said this in the match preview, I thought maybe it was an idea to start with Trossard up front. He plays far more like Gabriel Jesus with that drifting to the left, which would allow Martinelli to cut inside, which might allow for Granit Xhaka to move up through the left-hand side of the middle and allows Zinchenko to cut inside as well. Those kind of triangles are part of the reason that the early part of our season was such an exciting season for us. We're not doing that with Eddie stuck up front. And as I said before, the main role of a striker, however good you are, is measured by how you take your chances. It's one thing if you're not getting the ball and you're not able to score, but he had at least 3 very good chances to get us something out of that game yesterday. Now, I think it's really important at this point that I make some, the internet is alive today with people who are saying, they let us down, they didn't play enough. I don't think that at all. I think these players are giving and have given so far everything they can. But there are levels of expectation, and then there's what's realistic. Now, the third point for me is the changes that we made before the game. Everybody is smart after the event. I absolutely don't want to fall into the trap of being critical after the event. But I do think that, as I said, Trossard would have been my choice up front, just to try something a little bit different, something where we keep the ball a little bit better and bring the team up, in attack. That wasn't Arteta's style. He has stayed consistent and played the same players. But then that just shines a light on his decision to drop Ben White in favour of Tomiyasu. Now, I said before the game that I thought it was possible. I didn't think it was necessarily something I expected from Arteta. But certainly with players like Mahrez, you want the kind of defender that Tomiyasu is. Now, Tomiyasu giving away the first goal, it's a bad decision for a back pass. Having said that, it might only be Kevin De Bruyne in the world that would have punished us in the way that they did. Still, it was a mistake that led to the goal and put a load of pressure on us. We responded magnificently. Xhaka stepping up to take that penalty gave me kittens. Obviously, I'm going to remember his miss in the European Championships, but he's a different player now. He's learned so much from that, and really, I had no reason to doubt him. That's one of the coolest penalties I've seen. When you've got the goalkeeper pointing where he wants you to put it, and you put it there coolly and calmly. And I thought going into the break at 1-1, I wasn't thrilled with our performance, but I really did think we'd get something out of it. And I didn't see City as this unbeatable force in world football. I thought they paid us far too much respect, and I thought that they time wasted, and that's a really good sign of the fact that they didn't necessarily believe we're going to get anything out of this game. Our mistakes continued in the second half. So does Tomiyasu's inclusion now look like a mistake? Yeah, I think you have to say it does. And that's okay. I think it's absolutely impossible for any of us to anticipate a season where the manager doesn't make any mistakes at all. Pep Guardiola himself has made plenty this season, and I think they both will continue to do that. But there is something very frustrating about swapping a player out and then having him so badly underperform, and the occasion got to Tomiyasu last night, and so on balance, I suppose we all wish he hadn't come in. So did the nerves get the better of us last night? Yes, I think they did to some degree. I think that, I keep saying this, a very young team. You learn from these experiences. We learned so much from our failure to come fourth last season that we're actually at the top of the table. And that's an amazing achievement on the kind of budgets that we've got, on the kind of players that we've brought in. Our defensive mistakes could come down to lots of things. On the one hand, you could look at it just a lack of concentration, not being fired up enough. But I think we all saw enough from that game yesterday to know that it meant a lot to the players. And there were aberrations. Gabriel at the back has been as solid since his sending off against Manchester City. We've seen those kind of errors leave his game. But last night, our over-reliance on trying to work our way out of the back, particularly in wide areas. We know Man City press wide. They have a wide press. It was reported that one of the things that Pep Guardiola was heard shouting from the touchline was "Stay on Tomiyasu, stay on Tomiyasu," and he's not one of the world's greatest managers for nothing. There are going to be times, I think, where we need to show a little variation in our play and not be so scared to hoof it up to the front man. Now, in that case, Eddie Nketiah might not be the absolute go-to, but I still think that playing it out wide to the wings and playing a longer ball and not insisting on playing out from the back would have done us some favours yesterday. Again, easy to be wise after the event, and I think that a lot of our slow build-up play has been fantastic. Just didn't happen through the middle. Odegaard, well, the obvious comparison Odegaard is Kevin De Bruyne, and I think on the day, if you looked at two key comparisons, our front man versus their front man, beast mode up front for Manchester City, took his goal brilliantly. He does look a different quality, doesn't he? 25 goals already this season. Alan Shearer's record of 34 must be up for grabs. And it's incredible to me that he's as young as he is. He's only, a year older than Eddie himself. but he is a different calibre of player. But the key differential here, I think, if you looked at Kevin De Bruyne, who I think has been sulking a little bit in the last few games, but what a goal he took and what a difference he made when he was called upon. And I think Odegaard will be that player, but he isn't yet. And he was strangely subdued because we weren't linking the defence with the midfield. He just had an off game, and everybody's entitled to that. We had an incredible performance if you looked at it on paper. Apart from the goals, Manchester City have never conceded possession in the way they did last night. There may be a turning point here that we're not seeing, that we may now be really challenging them. And certainly there's a long season ahead of us that we can still do this. Of course, we do still have that game in hand. The game in hand is, we play first on Saturday, so at 12:30 kickoff against Aston Villa. Honestly, I don't see that game as a walk in the park either. I think something has to happen in the next 3 days to lift this team, and I believe Arteta will do that. I thought he gave another able press conference where he said that, the fact that Man City had played the way they did, watching the entire game, he didn't feel like it was too big a difference between the teams. Personally, I do think, and I say this with the caveat, but I think it was men against boys. I think what you saw is a team of experienced footballers who've been in this situation before against a team that just hasn't been in this situation before. I think there is a concern that unless we get this balance right on the left-hand side of the pitch, the answer is not always going to be taking Martinelli off and throwing on Trossard. I do think that we have to start making some changes. I think Eddie's played a lot of minutes. My concern in the match last night was that we're asking a lot of him to carry our goal-scoring threat against a well-marshalled City defence. The worst case scenario for me was that he fails or he has a bad game and then everybody's pointing the finger at him. We cannot be pointing the finger at these players. When we win, we use we and us, and when we lose, it's them and they. And I don't buy that for a second. We are top of the league until we play City, and then they lost us the league. It's not good enough. We are fans. If we want to claim any of the credit or any of the joy from the wins, then we have to stand firm. I am still saying, as I was expecting to say, however bad the result had been, if they turned us over 8-0 last night, I still would be saying the same thing. The team that put us top of the table deserves our love and our respect, but more importantly, our support. Now, I want to say this because in the build-up to last night's match, I said it was going to be really important that the atmosphere at the stadium was great. Hats off. It was an amazing atmosphere, and I can only say how much it makes me proud to be an Arsenal fan, that the fans sing their hearts out and cheer the team on. We need to be in that frame of mind for the remaining games of this season. We have 2 particularly tricky matches away to Aston Villa and Leicester before we go on an arguably better run. But if we drop 6 points in those 2 games, it's going to be really hard to get the chins up. I thought it was a lovely moment when Odegaard went over to Tomiyasu after his mistake and forcibly lifted his chin up. I think that there is a lot of character in this team that will develop into a world-class team, and I have no doubts that we can challenge again after this season. But there is a lot of speculation that if we don't win it this season, that might be realistically our last chance. And I understand where that's coming from. Chelsea spending 600 million, Newcastle with so much money in the bank, Manchester City, if they don't suffer relegation because of fair play, they're going to continue to be the force they are. And Manchester United seem to be able to buy players for ridiculous amounts of money whenever they want. So it is an incredibly difficult league to win, and having an advantage like this one and squandering it is going to feel difficult. But I certainly do not buy the fact that this is our last chance to win the league. Teams do come along and win the league when no one's expecting them to. And I think that the most important thing in a team that wins a league is that squad harmony, that idea and that belief in one vision. Arteta has given them belief in the process. He has given them belief in the vision. I believe. I hope you still do as well. I'm going to be glued to the television on Saturday for our away game to Villa, and I'm going to have everything crossed that we use this defeat to fuel the bounce back that we were hoping for after Everton, that didn't quite materialise at Brentford. That you may say that actually yesterday's performance was pretty good, barring a few mistakes. We certainly, had we taken our chances, it could have gone either way, and the 3-1 scoreline certainly flatters them. But we do need to make some adjustments. I don't think that Tomiyasu will be in for the game against Villa. I think Ben White may return. And I really do hope, for lots of reasons, that Trossard is given a start up front, if for no other reason than just Eddie deserves a bit of a break. And he's a sort of player that I'd love to see us bring on from the bench. I'm really keen to hear what you think of the game. I've heard a lot of supporters, or plastic supporters, calling the team all the kind of names under the sun. But by and large, the general tone amongst real Arsenal fans, people who really support the club, is that we are still incredibly proud of this young group of players. And that I still believe that, as we all do, that there is a lot that they can achieve. Maybe it will just be the Europa League this season. Maybe we won't get any silverware. But what we have done is we have put a flag in the ground to say what we're capable of so far. And as this team gets more experience and is added to with a little bit more experience, I really do think we can look for title challenges in the next 3 or 4 years. So that's been my take on the game. I'd love to hear your thoughts, obviously. And if you did like this video, if you love this kind of content, and please do make sure you support by clicking like. It makes all the difference in the world. And lots of love.